Hi, welcome to Kaijo Tutorials. Welcome back to day 3 of the Software to Machine Learning 365 challenge. In this video, we are going to look at MatPlotLib. So let's get started. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at this diagram to kind of give a quick synopsis as to what a library, not a library, but a graph looks like and what is its anatomy. So let's look at this. So this is a graph right here. We have the x-axis, which is also called an independent variable. So then right here we have the y-axis. The y-axis is also the dependent variable. So that will determine as to what kind of values we're going to put on the y or x. So if it is that the whatever it is that doesn't depend on the other goes on the x. So that's the independent variable. The one that is dependent, it means that whatever its value or result is dependent upon the x variable. Also, so this is a makeup that we're going to find when we're using MatPlotLib. This right here is the legend. Legend tells you what each symbol means, what colors, etc. mean in the inside of a graph. Then outer layer surrounding all of it is called a figure. Right? So now that we understand that, we have the x and y-axis, and we have the label, the y-axis label, the x-axis label, as well as the legend. Now we're going to look at a more complex example of how the structure may work inside of MatPlotLib. And I forgot to mention, what is MatPlotLib? Well, MatPlotLib is a library that is used to do plots of graphs. So basically take the data and transform it into a visual representation through a graph, a scatter plot, a bar, etc. The next type that we're going to look at is a little bit more complex. So the first, what we looked at, would be considered in this instance the axis 0. And you have axis 1 right here. So right here, this graph has a title. And in this case, this will be the axis title 1, title 0, axis title 1, y-axis 1, y-axis 2. Similar with the x-axis. And as we build some more complex graphs, we'll kind of understand why this differentiation is very important. And at the top, we have the title for all of the figure. And then you have the titles for the related to each graph. Okay, so let's put this away and let's get started with our code. So we're using Google Colabs. So what I've done the pre-work based on what we have set up in day 1 of our episodes. So we have already installed the library for PyDrive. You don't have to use PyDrive, but we are using PyDrive because the data that we have currently exists inside of Google Drive. So we have initialized and did authentication and added the file location. So now let's see what we have. So we have this same CSV, the Hema CSV that we have been working with for the last 2 episodes. So we're going to continue working with this one. So let's create a new section. And we have already imported, as you see here, we're already imported pandas as PD. So what we're going to do, we're going to need to import MatPlotLib. But if you're using Jupyter Notebook, you're going to need to use this command in order to let the graph show inside of the Jupyter Notebook. But in Google Colab, you won't need this. So what command you're going to need? You're going to need MatPlotLib. So that %sign MatPlotLib inline. And you would need to run that command to be able to see the plots being displayed inside of the sheet. But in our case, we don't need this, but just in case you're using Jupyter Notebook. So let me just make a note. This command is to show the plots inside of Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so what we'll need for what we'll need for MatPlotLib, we'll need to import MatPlotLib, and we're going to also spelled something wrong. MatPlotLib dot. We're going to also import something called PyPlot. Now explain what PyPlot does as PLT. And we'll also import NumPy. We'll talk about NumPy in future episodes, perhaps the next episode, but this is the library used to perform mathematical operations using Python. So NumPy as NP. So let's run this. Okay, I spelled something wrong. Oh, yes, I did. It's not MatPlot, it is MatPlot. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to show you a simple example as to how would you create a graph. I'm going to show two methods. One is the fastest way by using PyPlot, but I'm going to show you the recommended manner later on. So the recommended way to do it is by using the object-oriented method. If you check the MatPlotLib's documentation, it does talk about the preferred method. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to need to prepare some data. So I'm just making some comment to document the code, prepare the data. And so we're going to say x-axis. So this is the independent variable. And we're going to say, we're going to have some months. So Jan, we're going to go up to April, Feb, March, keep making a mistake, and April. Okay, so on the y-axis, we're going to have the number of sales. So we're going to have a y-axis, which is dependent on the month. So we're going to say 11, 22, let's use 12, 24, let's use 36, and let's just use 66. It doesn't matter. So what we're going to do, we're going to now plot these. We're going to plot these values against a graph. So to do this, we'll call the matplot, so plt dot plot, and this is going to by default be a line graph. So we need to plot the x-axis and the y-axis. And if we want to add labels to this graph, so let's just show you what shows up first. So when I run this, you'll see there's a graph here. By the way, if you want to get rid of this verbatim, before I do this, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so if you want to get rid of this verbiage at the top, what you do, you'll use colon at the end of the last statement related to MatPlotLib. So if I run it again, it's no longer there. Okay, so if we want to have a label for the y and x-axis, what we'll need to do, we need to add label. What we'll need to do, we'll need to say PLT or MatPlotLib, and we'll say x label, and inside of x label we'll take a string and we'll say months. Then what we'll do next, we'll say MatPlotLib dot y label, then number of sales. All right, so if I run this, let me move the semicolon here to the bottom. If I move this, you can see, oh, I need to put this as a y. You can see number of sales and on the y-axis and months on the x-axis. So that is the quick and dirty way how to do it. So now I'm going to show you the recommended way to add a graph. Then after that, we'll go into how do we now take this data that we have from our Hema CSV and plot it. So recommended approach. Okay, so what we'll create, we're going to create an object. So this is the object-oriented API. So object-oriented API, which is more flexible than the other method that I showed earlier. We're going to create a figure and an axis. So it's a two-dimensional. So we're going to call MatPlotLib or the PLT, and then we're going to create what is called subplots. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. So we're going to create subplots, and we're going to set a fig size. Fig size is essentially how big would we like, what size do we want our graphs. So it goes by the height. So basically what it's going to be fig size is going to basically be equal to the height and the width. So fig size equal to, so we're going to say, let's give it a size of 5 height and 5 width. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to use axis. So we're going to plot this. So axis dot plot, and in the plot we're going to say the x-axis and the y-axis. Let's see what happens. Okay, and let's remember to put the semicolon. Okay, so it has been plotted. What if we want different data? Let's use the same x-axis, but we want a different set of data. Let's create a new x-axis, a new y-axis, a new y-axis. Then what we'll say in this one, we'll use 150, 200, 120 again, and 250. Okay. So we can see a different graph that we have ended up with. Okay, so I'm going to show you a more efficient way as well to add the labels. So if you want to customize a plot, so this one is to plot the data. Plot the data. And I'm also going to show you how to save the data as well. So if I want to customize the plot, what I will do, I will say axis dot set. One second. What did I do? Okay. So what we'll say is title equal, and we'll say sales this year, comma. Then we'll say X label. So same as what we had above, months. Then we'll say Y label. And we'll say sales this year. Sorry, not sales this year. We'll say number of sales. Number of sales. Let's run this and see. Let's put a comma. A comma, semicolon, and voila. We have a graph with the not just the y-axis label and the x-axis label, but also the title. Okay, so what more could we do? What if we wanted to save this data? Well, to save the graph, what we'll do, save the plot. So what we'll do is figure dot save fig. And what savefig takes is a URL. So, for example, images / plots / destination .png. But I won't be saving it in this video. But if you want to save, that's how you would save. Okay, so what if we would like a scatter plot? How do we do this? Well, it's much easier than you think it would be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy, in the interest of time, I'm going to copy what I have here, and I'm going to create another graph, and this time I want it to be a scatter plot. Well, all we have to do is change from plot to scatter. Let's run it and see what happens. Voila, scatter plot. That was easy. Let's experiment. Let's see what would happen if we wanted a bar chart. Let's say I wanted to mix them. Now the thing about MatPlotLib is that it's almost infinitely customizable. Anything that you can think of, you can do. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say if you want to use a bar chart, what I'm going to do is say axis dot bar, and what I'll just need is the x-axis and the y-axis. Let's see what happens. This is pretty interesting. So it's a mixture of both. Okay, so what if we want just a dedicated bar chart? Then what we're going to do, I'm just going to again copy this information here. You could reuse the information, but I'm just choosing to separate it just for ease of following what I'm doing. So instead of the scatter, I'm going to use the barcode. And here we are, we have a bar chart. Okay, so now let's go back to the data that we had previously. So we wanted to take the data from Hema _CSV and want to plot that information. Want to plot this information, right? So what we're going to do, let's first see what kind of data is being retrieved from Hema CSV. So let's test. So to get the type of a value, what we'll say is, say we want to find out what type is stored inside of hemoglobins. So what we'll do, we'll say type, then we'll say Hema underscore CSV, and then we will say hemoglobins. Let's see what shows up. I wonder why is this a series? Well, the reason is because we're looking at all of this, so it's a series. However, if we want to see specifically what an individual cell contains, then we'll say we want the first index or the first position in the array or series, and we can see that is a float 64. Okay, so now that we know this, know that we can use it. The reason we're checking for this is to ensure that we're able to actually plot it, because we need numeric values, especially for the y-axis. Okay, so let's add a new section. Then what we'll do, I'm going to create a local variable. So I'm going to say Hema Plot, that's what I'll be calling it, and we'll take Hema CSV. All right, so what I'm going to demo right now is an example of adding, one second, your own data to the CSV record, not the actual file, but the instance that we have in Hema CSV. So we're going to create something on Hema Plot. We're going to call it Hema, one second, we're going to call it Hema readings. Then what we're going to do, we're going to say we want to assign Hema CSV hemoglobins to Hema readings. Okay. We're also gonna want to add another variable. So for example, if we didn't want access to all of it, or wanted a new instance or value type. So Hema Plot age, and we are going to assign it, get the value from Hema CSV age. Remember, you have to match the cases. And then if we wanted to plot the data, what we'll do, we'll just now say Hema underscore plot dot plot. Then all we need to do is define what is going to be on the x-axis and what's going to be on the y-axis by telling what is the name of the column. So we'll say x. So on the x-axis we want age. On the y-axis we want Hema reading. So Hema readings. Okay. Let's test that. Let's test that out. Ooh, that looks a bit messy. Okay, so as a line it doesn't look proper. What if we wanted to represent it as a scatter plot that may show it cleaner or more appropriately? How we would do that is by saying comma kind. So we'll define what type it is. So we'll say kind, and then this will be a string, so we'll say scatter. So if we said scatter, now we have a scatter plot of the age. So what is the hemoglobin readings as the person's age? So if you notice here, as they get closer and closer to 100, the cluster decreases compared to the other the middle. Okay, so what if we wanted it as a histogram? Well, all we'll do, let's copy this, and we'll say, instead of scatter, we'll say hist. And below you will see a histogram representation. And what if we want it as a horizontal bar chart? So we'll say, right here, we'll say bar H. Now this may take a little while because of the amount of processes that needs to be run. Okay, so the scatter plot and the bar chart has been, the histogram has been generated. Now let's wait to see what happens related to the last example, which would be a bar H. But while that process, okay, so here it is. It's a bit small, but you can see a lot of ages. You can see a lot of ages that shows up right here. So lastly, let's see and prove the point that I said that you could add to the instance in terms of new columns to the CSV instance that we have. So if we say Hema underscore plot, and let's see what's there. As you can see here, we now have Hema readings, and we also have age. It's just similar. It's a literal same, a copy of age and a copy of hemoglobins. That means that we could create some calculation, maybe some total, maybe some calculations on each individual row and present it as a new column. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me in today's edition of 365-day challenge, software to machine learning. In the next episode, we're going to look at NumPy, and because the reality is that NumPy, MatPlotLib, and pandas all work together, and as we go along, we'll do more work where we're using all three together. Please join me in this journey. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.